Hello and welcome, Amadar Pratap Singh. You're joining us once again on NewsX. We are, of course, continuing to track the big story, which, of course, is regarding the Foreign Minister of India's meeting with his Chinese counterpart. We're learning that that meeting was set to begin at about 6 p.m. IST in Moscow. It's, remember, taking place on the sidelines of the SCO summit that's happening there. This, of course, is the second high-level meeting between India and China after the defense ministers of both nations met in Moscow just a few days back. At that meeting, India clearly asked China to retreat from all fresh dispute sites at the LAC and also return to status quo. China, meanwhile, responded, pinning the entire blame for the border skirmish on India. All eyes, of course, will be now on this key meeting and what the outcome will be. Interestingly, when it comes to the issue of India-China border tension, Russia has adopted an approach of non-interference in bilateral issues between the two countries. While encouraging the two sides to engage, Russia will not directly interfere, said Roman Babushkin, the Deputy Chief of Mission at the Russian Embassy in New Delhi. To take this story forward, we have a special panel with us at this point. Professor Madhav Nalapat, Editorial Director of the Sunday Guardian, is with us live. Ambassador Bhashpati Mukherjee, former diplomat, joins us. Major Shashi Asthana, former Additional DG Infantry and Global Strategic and Defense Analyst, is also joining us live. And Sumit Peer, in fact, political analyst, is live with us as well. And Professor Swaran Singh, in fact, foreign policy analyst and China expert, joins the panel as well at this point of time. Ambassador Bhashpati Mukherjee, let me rope you in here first. Your reading of what could be the outcome of this key meeting. What are your expectations of this meeting in which S. Jaishankar will be meeting with his Chinese counterpart? You'll have to unmute yourself. Yes.
The most important part of the meeting is that it is taking place at all. We are in a situation where there is a very tense standoff, and we have actually managed, the Indian Army has managed to take a strategic advantage over the PLA. And it is not likely that the PLA is going to back off, because the PLA consider that they have lost face and they will look for an opportunity to take revenge on some other part, or will try to continue their intimidating tactics exactly where we are situated. Under those circumstances, and if you remember that External Affairs Minister had clearly said that there is always a diplomatic option. That diplomatic option can be exercised if both sides are reasonable and they understand that the line of actual control, which has not been disturbed for years, cannot be arbitrarily shifted by one of the two parties on the line of actual control. So my reading is, our External Affairs Minister has been ambassador to China.
I just want to quickly apprise our viewers with some news just coming in. Ambassador Mukherjee, just stay with me. I just want to quickly apprise our viewers of these pictures that, in fact, are just coming in from Moscow. So these are, of course, visuals that have come in from Moscow. These are visuals of that meeting, in fact, of S. Jaishankar with the Chinese foreign minister and also the Russian foreign minister. So these, of course, are the latest pictures coming in. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar meeting with the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, as well as the Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, just a short while back in Moscow, Russia, on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting. So remember, of course, these are pictures, and of course, this trilateral meet has begun, has taken place, of course, there, but we're still awaiting that bilateral. So the bilateral has not yet begun. Remember, the bilateral, of course, will be a one-on-one meeting between the Indian Foreign Minister and, of course, the Chinese Foreign Minister, but the two have met. They've met, of course, along with the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. This meeting, of course, taking place on the sidelines of the SCO. The three all smiles before this meeting. So the body language, of course, seeming positive ahead of this meet. Remains to be seen what the detailed discussions will be on. We will, of course, get you a statement as well as and when we do get it. Let me, in fact, also rope in.
I just wanted to finish what I was saying, which is
point. Also, interestingly, we were seeing ahead of the one-on-one meeting, the three foreign ministers also meet. So Russia, while not wanting to interfere directly, is still a key part of these deliberations and negotiations.
I just wanted to add that in diplomacy, what matters also is if you know your counterpart. Now, External Affairs Minister is a fluent Russian-speaking officer. He has his first posting was in Moscow. He's been ambassador to China. He knows the nitty-gritty of the border issue. He also knows the Chinese foreign minister personally. These things help in a breakthrough, and naturally the Russians would not like to, unlike President Trump, offer themselves for mediation, because I think they know very well that this is a very sensitive matter. But the very fact that the meeting itself is taking place, that's what I said, is very significant. So apart from the body language and the smiles, which I can't see sitting here, but you're telling me that the body language is good, which is good because the Chinese are not very good with body language. So if you're saying that they are looking pleased, then that's a good sign. But I think that the meeting itself will establish a breakthrough for further talks in case the Chinese leadership want to de-escalate. That is something which will become very clear over the next 1 week. Do they or do they not want to de-escalate, or do they want to escalate? That's the main thing. And that's not a diplomatic question. That's a military option on both sides.
Fair enough. Let me rope in the others. Major Lastana, why don't you jump in here on your expectations, of course, ahead of this meeting. What do you think will be the outcome? Any sort of breakthrough that can be achieved here? We've seen the defense ministers meet, but obviously that did not successfully iron out differences between the two nations.
Before the meeting, there have been two different hard stands of both sides as far as China and India is concerned. As far as India is concerned, they sitting in Depsang Heights and Finger 4, and we talking about improving relations, they don't go together. Their foreign minister had actually conveyed that let's sideline the border issue and let's talk of bigger engagement. To that, I think Mr. Jaishankar had already replied that border issue cannot be delinked by with the relationship. Now, having said that, the second thing is that as far as this meeting is concerned, I don't expect too much from this, because there is a political cost of any major compromise against the national interest or national sentiments. Personal situation do matter in creating a good environment in speaking, but they cannot override the national interest and national sentiments. As far as Chinese are concerned, the message to them is quite clear. We are ready for any kind of eventuality. And in fact, in my interview with South China Morning Post exactly on the same issue,
yes,
I had said in no uncertain terms that the political will of Chinese to go back to the pre-standoff position will dictate as to how the relationship will move forward.
okay,
Because unless that will is there, and I appreciate that the will has got a cost, because there is a loss of face, they have something to show, they need something to show to their diplomatic audience, and that is why you would have found that the Chinese military, PLA, is being told to probe all the gaps and heights, so that if they can get a foothold somewhere, they should be able to get some kind of strength in as far as the negotiating position is concerned. My next point is, or the last point I would say is, for any meaningful negotiation, the first basic requirement is you have to agree. Now, that is the first step. Unfortunately, in this particular case, the first step is yet to be crossed. And that is why I don't pitch that much hopes as far as the outcome of the meeting is concerned. Notwithstanding that, meeting is a good sign, like it or not, whether conflict or no conflict, before the conflict and after the conflict, at the end of the day, we have to talk. And as Ambassador brought out, talk is an option. And certainly when the things, the political costs are so heavy, both sides, the situation is beyond, a little beyond diplomacy at this juncture.
All right, Professor Nalapat, come in here. Professor Nalapat, on your assessment of the situation ahead of this meeting, and the fact that Russian foreign minister is also involved in these deliberations, interestingly before the bilateral. Do you believe that some sort of breakthrough will take place today? Is that too much to expect? Should we appreciate the fact that dialogue is happening constantly between top ministers? We saw the defense ministers meeting as well a few days back. How do you view this meet today?
Well, I'd like to say that I fully agree that External Affairs Minister Jaishankar is doing the right thing in meeting the Chinese Foreign Minister separately. After all, this is an RIC meeting, and it's only common courtesy. The Defense Minister also met the Chinese Defense Minister, even though there was a difference in protocol. And I'm sure Defense Minister realized it's going to be a fruitless dialogue, but he did it as a matter of courtesy. And I think our behavior has always got to be courteous. Having said that, I'd just like to point out for the last, at least 3 to 4 years, I think it's very clear that China has embarked on an entirely different policy. If you recall, the Chinese Xi Jinping gave a commitment to President Barack Obama that they would not militarize the islands of the South China Sea.
Yes.
What has happened now? There are many more islands, and they have come as though from the sky. And amazing, they're all militarized. You have aircraft, you have artillery, you have missiles, you have all kinds of things. And then if you look across the border, into Tibet and all that, you have missiles, you have artillery, you have tanks. And look, the reality is, this is a new reality that is being faced by all the neighbors of China, frankly, whether it's ASEAN, whether it's India, whatever. And then this is a very assertive China. So if you're talking, I fully agree with the general, unless they go back to the line to where they were before they entered into this intrusion on the 3rd or 4th of May. Well, there is really there is really no outcome that is worth mentioning, and I'm sure that all our diplomats are very conscious of Shimla. In Shimla, India conceded so much, and for so little. Then again, in Kargil, we allowed the Pakistan army to escape, and the Musharraf went around saying, "Oh, we were winning the war," but what happened? The Nawaz Sharif was given money by the Indians, so he forced us to withdraw. For heaven's sake, the Musharraf was begging him to get a face-saving withdrawal. We gave them a face-saver, and this is what happened. So I only want to say, I'm not holding my breath. I think this situation is very clear, and I think it is going to be some time before it gets resolved. But in that time, hopefully, there'll be no illusions on the Indian side about any of this leading to any breakthrough, because the Chinese have broken through. They've broken through the past policies of Deng Xiaoping. They've broken through earlier restraint. And they are certainly trying to break through the line of actual control and create new lines of actual control with every passing month.
Okay. Sumit Peer, do you also believe that these sort of dialogues are important at this juncture between the defense ministers of the two countries, the foreign ministers of the two countries? Some sort of engagement is essential, is necessary. It can help in ironing out differences. But the problem with the Chinese often is, Sumit, that they say one thing in this meeting, they say one thing in the statement, perhaps that will be issued after the meeting, and then there's a completely different tone taken by them, when their daily foreign ministry briefing takes place the next day.
I think, Uday, I completely agree with all the three panelists, especially Professor Malonal. But you see, the Chinese today have come into our territory, right? So they changed the LAC. We did not change the LAC. So, when you talk of these meetings and discussions, they're welcome. बात करने में कोई हर्ज नहीं है. बात करने से बात बनती है. And instantly, Dr. Jaishankar is one of the best foreign ministers of India so far I've seen. I personally admire him. I like his diplomatic aggression, what India needs at this point of time. I like the way he speaks. I like his statements. But honestly, our friend, Dr. Jaishankar, is in a very difficult situation. A friend called Russia has invited us for a meeting with the evil and the devil. So the evil is Pakistan and the devil is China. What do you expect Angel, who is Dr. Jaishankar, to do and get out of this meeting? There's nothing which is to come out of this meeting, honestly, Uday. But as for diplomatic protocols and all, we have to talk. It is a repeat of Chinese strategy of smoke screens and deceit. They will create a smoke screen, and even when we are doing this program, when Dr. Jaishankar is talking, PLA might be planning to capture one more peak or one more post away at this moment of time. That is what they do. Uday, three, four things. They have taken this Ranzilla Ridge, and our troops are just, the 40, 50 troops are just eyes at the eye distance, eyeball flash away from them. We have taken Pagongso Heights and we overlook the Maldo region. They know that very well. They intruded into our territory, we set them back. They wanted to build jetties in Pagongso, which is not possible. With all these things happening on, do you think you can still trust the Chinese? The only thing is if they SAMs and you want us to talk and you believe us that you want to talk to us. It's not going to happen, Uday. Nothing is expected of these talks. At least we have one of the best foreign ministers on the earth of this, I would say, so best so far. But honestly, he is up against a mountain because the Chinese have no intention to talk. If we fall for that trap, it's a smoke screen. Deceit will follow. Smoke screen, deceit, smoke screen, deceit. That's what we have seen. And with Chinese, Uday, one last thing. When you talk with Chinese, you talk on a gun with the table. As a matter of fact, Indian army is standing there. We have 100,000 troops there. Otherwise, by this time, they would have reached Ladakh. Because we have a gun on table, we can only talk with Chinese. They understand no language. They believe in expansionism. Xi Jinping wants to create his legacy. Anyway, people in PLA are talking, what have you achieved in 5 months? He has no answer. What has this billions of dollars of modernization achieved? No answers. Has India stopped your aggression? Has India stopped your expansionism? Yes. And this kind of Uday is costing him face and is blunting that Chinese facade of propaganda which they created for 70 years. PLA is invincible, CCP is invincible. You cannot come in the way of China. And today, Japan, India logistic pact, there are a lot of things which are changing. Japan and all, they're now coming openly, doing military logistic pacts and all. So you have to see everything. They cannot back out. If they back out, we are welcome. Go to April 30th position. That's the only discussion.
Okay. Ambassador Mukherjee, what do you really believe is Russia's role in all of this? How do you react to the approach that Russia has taken in all of this? They are, of course, part of these deliberations, but they've decided, obviously, not to interfere. They've said that they let this issue be sorted completely bilaterally between the two nations. How would they be viewing and how are they viewing the current conflict?
Well, the very fact that the Russians say they want to be neutral indicates that they've come a very, very long way from the way it was in 1971 when the Russians vetoed the American resolution in the Security Council to condemn India in what was happening then in East Pakistan. So the Russians there is no doubt, unfortunately, that the Russians have been pushed into the Chinese lap, partly because of the extremely foolish behavior of the West, who tried to bring down the Russians economically and leaving them with very little choice. But that being said, there is one very important issue here, which the Russians also recognize, which is that there had been peace on the line of actual control because both sides agreed with what the Chinese foreign minister told our external affairs minister, which is that you freeze the border as it is and you make progress on other issues, notably trade, etc., and you have a separate mechanism, which we have actually, between the two foreign offices to try to solve the intractable part later and the easier parts first. That is how the relationship had been going until it was unilaterally changed a few years ago by the Chinese. Now you are in a situation where just as we remember 1962, they also remember 1962. I would completely agree with those who say they are not going to go back to any original position. They are going to try to teach us a lesson in the same way as Chow Enlai decided to teach Nehru a lesson when we allow the Dalai Lama to come in. The stakes are very high for them because Ladakh is full of Buddhists. They want to terrorize and intimidate also the Ladakhi population by their behavior. And so we have to be prepared for any eventuality. Diplomacy can only come in this particular case if the military option is not acceptable to both sides, then diplomacy comes in. But where the military option remains to be exercised and where you have an implacable foe who's determined to teach you a lesson, then you have to stand firm, as the panelists have said, with your armed forces and beef up your support internationally and hold firm until winter comes. Because once winter comes, not the PLA, which I don't think has covered itself with glory in any case, is in no position to be able to take over those heights. We have held on to Siachen. Our army can do a lot of things which PLA cannot do. So we have to hold on until winter comes. And then while winter comes, then you have a US election, you have a new Japanese prime minister, you have changes on the ground, and also maybe we would be in a better position regarding the corona pandemic because the Chinese had also thought they would take advantage of the fact that it's raging in India, and for some mysterious reason they've been able to bring it under control in China. So all this means that we have to hold on to what we have till winter comes and keep talking diplomatically. But I agree that what is important is these are talks about talks. Which somebody said, agree to agree. What we say in MEA is these are talks about talks. Talks about how talks will take place once the military option has been rejected by both sides. Until then, yes, we will talk if we are asked to talk, and we will keep talking about how to talk. And that's all that is going to happen. That's my assessment.
Right. Major Shashi Asthana, would you also like to react to that? And also, the fact, Major Asthana, that, what we've seen, of course, is that India has taken a very strong stance, a very definitive stance, that there will not be business as usual with China. We've also called them out, saying that they're indulging in misadventures. We've also put it out there, and made it amply clear that China must retreat back to status quo, back to pre-May positions, and only then, can it do business as usual again. We've also asked them to withdraw from their strategic positions and whatnot. So, how do you react and respond to the strong and definitive stance that India has taken, Major Asthana, on all of this?
The stance which we have taken, I think, firstly, there is no other option but to take that stance, and secondly, the stance taken, I think, is also directly proportional to the national will and the message very clearly given by the leadership, that is the Indian leadership. Considering as far as the situation on ground is concerned, which Ambassador was pointing out, let me highlight few things. One, Indian Army is absolutely prepared for all eventualities. Secondly, we also keep wargaming a lot of options, and therefore the new, shall we say, as the time progresses and as the winter comes in, winter is a very major concern in China, as I can make out, and I can also make out from the questions which they normally put up to me. The second thing which I would highlight is that as far as the movements on borders are concerned, we do have a fair amount of system in place to maintain these troops. We do a fair amount of stocking for them. In addition, if you recall, we also commercialized, and we had landed not only the Globemaster but even Jet Airways aircraft in Thois, and our Leh airfield is active. So even if the land routes gets blocked in snow, we have adequate arrangements to ensure that the sustenance of troops can take place. So from our angle, I think in this area we are certainly absolutely all right. As far as other areas are concerned, LAC is very long. No army, irrespective of the size, whether Chinese army or Indian army, the practicality is nobody can be strong everywhere. So there are weaknesses with them as well as with us. Every single day as we move and as the confrontation moves forward and the probing actions are in any case on by them to save their face or whatever one can say. The fact is there will be some very good days. There may not be some not so. There may be some not so good days, but then we are a professional army. We can take on a lot of things. In fact, the idea of professionalism is that even in Kashmir, like you would find that the day you have a lot of army casualties, the entire media goes gaga. But we as the army generals, we still keep our head cool. And similarly, when you have 15 terrorists killed and no army casualty, we don't jump off the table and say, no, we have done a hell of a lot of job. It's a question of opportunity. So there are opportunities available both sides. But at the end of the day, we are very sure that we having got a very strong position south of Pangong Tso, and we also have some options as far as those fingers are concerned. I won't talk about it on television now, but certainly we have an answer for everything what they have done. And we are in a position that we will be able to teach them a lesson. There are very major differences between them. There are that firstly, Han Chinese are not defending their motherland. They are a army of the party.
I've got the larger point you're making, and that's something the Master Mukerjee also said. We should not back down. We can teach them a lesson, is what Major Asthana said. Ambassador Mukerjee also said, hold out in the winter. Is some sort of breakthrough expected or not? Let me bring in at this point Professor Swaran Singh, who's also joining us live, a foreign policy analyst and China expert. Professor Swaran Singh, how do you view this meeting that is taking place in Russia? What are your key expectations of it?
I think we have to appreciate the interest that Russia is showing in this entire exercise. Even earlier, there was an attempt on ensuring phone call conversation between Wang Yi and Jaishankar. Then, of course, facilitating two defense ministers meeting and now facilitating foreign ministers meeting. Before I talk of China and India, it is in Russia's deep interest to ensure that certain kind of stability is maintained on the border because it wants to engage both China and Russia simultaneously. It's their national interest. So Russia will be engaging these two countries very seriously to ensure stability is maintained. Second very quick point is, I think I agree with General Asthana, this is going to be a long haul. This is not going to disappear very quickly. Even stability may not appear very quickly because both sides are constantly reinforcing. The fact that India has reinforced very, very strongly both in south of Pangong Lake and now, of course, on Finger 4 is a temptation for Chinese to also do something likewise. They may not do it in the eastern sector. They could even take it to the eastern sector. They may not do it in the Ladakh western sector. They could even take it to eastern sector. We also hear about 5 Thagin tribal boys who were being taken away by PLA. So it's not ending very quickly is what I believe. And in that sense, the kind of patience and kind of very, very measured response that India is presenting at all levels, including on the ground, is a reflection of this being a long haul, whereas Foreign Minister said it will take time for both sides to find their new equilibrium as to, in the term, they are transformed big powers today. The old mannerisms and mechanisms are not effective anymore. There's a breach one after another. There's a quasi-permanent structures being placed. There is the unilateral advancement of forces happening. These are all written documents saying that this should not happen. And now, of course, the firing that has happened on the ground. So constant escalation of breaching all the agreements that have been signed so far. And I think it is going to start now a second or third chapter of China-India relations. And it will be really taking some time before we first find stability on the ground and then start talking of backing up or disengagement on the border, because last two actions of India, both on 29th night and on 7th, are really putting the deep onus on Chinese, and they are desperate to do something. I think we have to really watch out carefully. Even if they are talking at various levels, they might be planning to do some mischief on the ground to sort of up the ante. In that sense, therefore, it is going to be tit for tat for a long period of time. And I am aware that General Asthana mentioned Indian military is fully prepared to deal with situation even during winter time. during good times, forces would not even patrol these areas during winter period. They just trusted each other, but no longer now. So apparently, this is going to be a long haul, and it seems India is taking it in that fashion.
So you appreciate the fact that dialogue is happening, Professor Swaran Singh, because there are some of the opinion who are saying that it's great, at least even in a situation like this, where it's unprecedented across the border. Obviously, the situation is very serious, volatile. There is still dialogue happening. There is still some sort of engagement happening, which is positive. There are those who say that India should have just cut off from such meetings. Till China withdraws, there should have been no meeting between the defense ministers of our countries or the foreign ministers of our countries. Which viewpoint do you subscribe to, Professor Swaran Singh?
Let me say that if you look at India's civilizational DNA, it's not an option for India to close all doors. We are not a civilization that behaves in that fashion. You have seen even with Pakistan, after these cycles of cooperation and sort of disaffection with each other, there are periods when we are extremely angry. Recently, we are again not talking to continue. So they must have really facilitated this activity. Even when two foreign ministers are meeting, you can notice that there's a luncheon meeting of the trilateral of Lavrov and Indian and Chinese foreign ministers. So Russia is taking deep interest in ensuring that these two countries continuously talk to each other because Russia's global stature depends on its friendship with China and India together.
Okay. Let me also bring in at this point Professor Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, now, we're of course awaiting some sort of statement as well from our MEA, and we would of course break that for our viewers as soon as it does come in. But in terms of course, Professor Nalapat, the Chinese, statements. Now, as I said earlier, the fact is that China says something else in these meetings, and perhaps they will today as well. But they go back on their word. They have not retreated back on ground despite pledging to, committing to in brigadier commander level and corps commander level talks. They struck some said it little bit of a conciliatory tone in that defense ministers meet where India put its position very clear. The very next day they painted India as the aggressor. They said India is the one who is responsible for these skirmishes. It was a very strong statement which came in from the foreign ministry literally the day after our defense ministers met. So can China be trusted? Can we expect some sort of positive word to be spoken in today's foreign affairs meet which will translate into positive sentiment and action on ground?
Well, I'd only like to point out that the fact is that, I have gone multiple times to China, and I have immense respect for them. And so far as Xi Jinping is concerned, he has made no secret of the fact that he is very different from Jiang Zemin or Deng Xiaoping. Deng Xiaoping and Jiang Zemin were wanting a G2, that China and the US will have separate spheres of influence. And of course, guess what? India will, of course, be in the Chinese sphere of influence. But America will have some other countries in their sphere. But Xi Jinping has made it very clear from the Belt and Road Initiative days onwards. China has got to replace the United States as the core of the international. very little room for public relations of the kind that we are talking about, impressing India, impressing other countries. Look, they're not looking at that. They are interested in their public opinion and in their domestic politics. Let's be honest about that. And from that point of view, a hard line sells domestically. Any kind of a thing, and especially a withdrawal or even the hint that they are ready to discuss withdrawal would go down very badly with the PLA, etc. So if you're asking for my assessment of any actual change on the ground, I'm sorry, Uday, I don't see that. But having said that, I agree with Swaran. India is a civilizational country. As a civilizational country, we are always very courteous. But I would like to remind Professor Swaran
Yes.
Singh that our experience with 70 years of being very civilized with Pakistan, I would like to remind Professor Singh where we are at this particular moment after 70 years.
Okay, I think Professor Swaran Singh obviously wants to respond to you, so I'll allow him, and then I'll get in Ambassador Mukherjee and Sumit Peer as well. Yes, Professor Swaran Singh.
I am in full agreement with Professor Nalapat. There are domestic pressures, particularly now since they are going for next month, they're going to have the party annual session. And there's an enormous pressure to declare the sixth leadership of China, which President Xi Jinping is trying to delay and stay on in power. So he has to ensure that he continues to be seen as tough on sovereignty issues. And, the longer it continues on the ground, the more difficult it becomes for both sides, actually, not just Chinese, because it would be seen increasingly as a surrender, not as benevolence. I mean, I fully agree with Professor Nalapat that civilizational courtesies cannot lead us to be so benevolent that we suddenly decide to sort of cede certain amount of territory. That is not going to happen. So civilizational courtesies do not include sort of bowing down to somebody next door to us. In that sense, that is not going to happen. There are basic core interests that India will protect constantly. But I understand the longer it continues to be tense border, more difficult accommodation and concessions will become, particularly now because Xi Jinping is moving in a direction where he's trying to ensure his continuation in the leadership for next maybe a decade, if not more. Whereas Indian side is perfectly calm. We recently had election. We are not even in midterm of the Prime Minister. So he's not in a hurry to go to next elections. So in that sense, I think greater domestic pressure at this stage for Chinese leadership, which is under enormous stress because of various reasons, the shrink of economy, the global anger vis-a-vis them, the whole rattling of the leadership, because if Xi Jinping stays for a decade, you can understand there's a whole group of people who are waiting in the wings to take on. They will retire without taking the opportunity to become any leader in that sense. So only certain kind of people who are prodigies of Xi Jinping will continue to rule the country. So that kind of group also is enormously, upset with what is happening on the ground. So apparently China has its own limitations, and I think therefore they will also continue to engage without really easily and quickly solving anything, because what you hear from China, they want equal and voluntary disengagement, which is strange. I mean, I'm using a very neutral word here, which is strange because if they are the ones to walk in first and create crisis, they should be the one walking back first. They can't then expect mutual and equal disengagement happening on the ground. And I think the fact that Indian forces have reinforced their positions recently gives India enormous strength in negotiating table, and that will be visible possibly as Dr. Jaishankar speaks to Wang Yi today. They had very different equations when he was a career diplomat. They used to meet together, but now he's going as Foreign Minister of India, representing India in a very different fashion. So I think that what forces have achieved on the ground in last 10 days brings enormous weight to the negotiation table on the Indian side. And we will see, possibly some...
And obviously, the diplomat is the one doing that for us at this Foreign Affairs Ministers meeting. Okay, yes, Ambassador Mukherjee.
I just wanted to add, that I have a lot of respect for what Professor Swaran Singh has said. But it is also important to remember that the Chinese actually regard this civilizational heritage of ours as a weak point in the belly of the elephant. You must remember that. This is a neighboring country which is totally non-vegetarian, which eats the back and the tail, right? There cannot be any two countries more different from each other, and When we talk about our civilizational heritage, they denigrate it as a sign of weakness. So I actually think, Professor Swaran Singh, that in the middle of this huge crisis, we should not talk about our civilizational heritage. I have seen in Kargil when those soldiers came back with their eyes gouged out by the Pakistanis. That was not civilized at all. So we have to now get into a kind of mode where the international community and our implacable enemies, China and Pakistan, understand us that we are strong militarily,
Yeah.
that we are capable of giving kind of victory that we are going to have in before winter comes.
Swaran, I'll come back to Sumit Peet. Sumit Peet, I think, also wants to react. Yes, Sumit, go ahead.
I completely agree with with Ambassador Mukherjee. She is absolutely right. She's bang on. I myself been to China more than 27 times, and I've traveled across the whole of China, and I tell you, I mean, this is exactly what they think. This civilization connect and all is good enough, but when it comes to our land, our liberty, and our freedom, nothing is talked, nothing is negotiable. This is seen as our sign of weakness. You see, Uday, why were they talking? Let's keep the border dispute aside and let's talk business. Because when you do business with them, you give them $50 billion a year, which is around 1.5% of our GDP. Now with the app ban, we have reversed all what we have given them for last 10 years because the app ban is going to cost them hundreds of billions of dollars. We have a very powerful prime minister. We have a very, very powerful Indian army. We have a very capable defense minister. This is what is irking Chinese. This is what they are not liking. This is what they find different from 1962. And today, people like us and your channel, we come on the TV and we speak our mind out. We are not scared of what China thinks and believes about us because we trust our prime minister, we trust our army, we trust our defense minister, we trust our establishment, right? And one last point. You see, the difference between us and them is Indian army fights for Mother India, fights for the Indian flag, while as the PLA fights for the General Secretary Xi Jinping. It's a big difference. I mean, I won't hesitate calling them mercenaries because if you have loyalty to a person or a party, you're as good as a mercenary. We have a sovereign army who has always proved its mettle. Uday, let Chinese be under no doubt. They can never ever take 1 inch of land of them. And last but not the least point, smoke. The smoke screen and deceit policy of Chinese is continuing. Is for us. Do we want to enter this minefield of Chinese or not? We should not enter. There is no way we can trust Chinese, nor never ever on this earth.
Uday, you should give me 30 seconds to clarify what I said, both to Sumit and Ambassador Mukherjee. I absolutely never meant to say that being civilizationally grounded means weakness. Absolutely not. I think if you look at your civilizational epics like Mahabharata and Ramayana, they are the enormous wars that they have been narrated in those epics. So fighting for justice is very integral part of Indian civilizational tradition.
Yeah.
But civilizational tradition, as Professor Nalapat said, makes us courteous to others. So if Pakistan is gouging eyes, we are not going to sort of do the same thing to them. We'll have other ways of dealing with Pakistan. And let me also share, it depends on who we meet in China, and all of us have been traveling to China extensively. You will find people who say India colonized China because of Buddhism. Buddhism went from India to China, so they think we intellectually have colonized their thinking and their whole spiritual beliefs. So it depends on how we look at China, but I think China also is a civilizational country, and I hope they will understand the kind of nuanced courtesies that India is extending. And if it is not appreciated, then of course we will be going back to, we have a fallback position, plan B, which you are seeing happening on the border constantly. We were courteous and we sort of maybe allowed them to do some damage in Galwan Valley. But look at what happened both in Chushol area and now in taking on the command of Finger 4 recently. So India is going to make courtesies very clearly to even the worst enemies, but that will not be a sign of weakness at all. And I think recent the movement of Indian army on the ground is a clear example that is also an integral element of Indian civilization. So I never meant to say that being civilizationally grounded means you're weak against any neighbor. That's not how it is. But we will still try to seek solutions through dialogue. That is how India prefers to engage our neighbors, is what I was underlining.
Okay, fair point. Major Lastana can also react to, of course, your statement, considering that everyone has been reacting to it. But we're also, in fact, yes,
I will not talk of civilization.
Yeah. We're also learning that.
And we have a very learned, esteemed panelist, and everyone certainly has his views. So I respect that.
Yes, they're entitled to their opinions.
I want to talk about.
I want to talk about. Also have a right to react to those opinions. I think that's what the debate is.
But it doesn't matter. I would like to talk.
Sir, 1 second, just 1 second. This was consensus between defense ministers. India is committed to a peaceful resolution. Diplomatic level talks are on, military level talks are on. This is a gist of that MEA statement which is coming on this meeting. I just wanted to apprise our viewers of that. Yes, you can go ahead, Major Lastana.
I just want to say two things. One is, even if China, whoever with whom they have talked, they settled the border, and yet they went off the tangent and threw all the agreements in the dustbin on one fine day. Take the case of Tajikistan, a very well settled, demarcated border. All of a sudden they come out that half of Tajikistan is ours. And that has not been liked by Russia as well. Even Russians also feel that, okay, they have resolved border with us, but all of a sudden then something comes out from China. So that is also disturbing. Second, let me put certain specifics to Xi Jinping. Now, Xi Jinping, chairman of everything, with the kind of timelines and the aims which he had set for himself and for the country was 2049 developed society and a battle-winning army. Now, with COVID, he preponed all the things and thought that he can engage at multiple points, brought the global anger because of unfairly using COVID and trying to engage everybody. So with the result, today, even his own strategists, a number of them who can speak or who perhaps pick up a courage to speak, they are saying...
That's what we pointed out in an earlier debate, that he's become a bit like Mao Zedong. You know, he's become chairman of everything. He's, the fact is, Mao Zedong had introduced the new constitution which eliminated the state chairman office. The party chairman of the Chinese Communist Party became the most important person and powerful person in the country. Xi Jinping is literally becoming like Mao Zedong. He wants to remain China's president for as long as he wants to. He wants to become this party chairman like Mao was. Which is why, in fact, a US legislator has sought to abolish the title of Chinese president being accorded to him whenever he visits the United States. And obviously this military aggression is part of his design. He obviously feels it will appeal to the Chinese people. But go ahead, complete your point, and then I need to slip into a break and take some breaking news. Go ahead, sir. Major Lastana, please continue.
So last thing is that as far as he is concerned, people cannot disagree with him, and that's why even the logical minds in China are finding it difficult to convince Xi Jinping that you have increased your engagements beyond your capacity. So this kind of talking some sense to the leader is becoming difficult. People of China, I don't think their global anger is against people of China. They are very nice people. But the problem is the leadership has become over-ambitious and shortened the timeline to an extent which is not achievable and has gone beyond his capacity. So just with 3-4 bankrupt countries, he can't fight the entire world. And that's the reality, which people have started realizing. Unfortunately, the problem is in an authoritarian regime, it's difficult to convince the leader. So that's where the problem is, and China perhaps will have to grapple with this problem some more.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.